Hey guys, don't forget, Ice-T and the Hippogriff episodes can be listened to on the go using the Anchor app or Anchor website on any mobile device or computer. Just type Ice-T and the Hippogriff in the search bar. You can also get notifications to catch Ice-T and the Hippogriff recordings live on twitch.tv by following our Twitch channel. Find it at twitch.tv/IceTKirby. Enjoy the show.
People like to get worked up about things, and that's just not our style. So to save you guys a call to the authorities, take a listen to this. The opinions and ideas you hear are those of the hosts, their guests, and their callers, and not those of the companies, sponsors, or advertisers for this podcast. And with that said, enjoy the show.
Absolutely fantastic, Jesse. I am so happy to be here tonight. This is a juicy one.
Yes, it is. Thank you for joining us every week. Everyone in the Twitch chat and those of you listening on Anchor.fm. Today is a wonderful April 30th, 2020, and it is a nice Thursday evening at 7:06 here, and we're just kind of hanging out. We talked a little bit before the show began, and we were talking about all of our points and whatever, all that fun stuff. But today we got some juicy stuff, and you weren't kidding when you said juicy. So basically, oh yeah, we're gonna teach some stuff, but basically we're gonna dive deeper into something that we touched a little bit on in our first recording, in our pilot episode about the coronavirus, but we're gonna dive into this whole dating game here. And for those of you who are taken, and for those of you who are not on the dating scene, don't click out, because this will still be interesting, I promise. But before we do that, let me just get some household chores out of the way here, or logistics, I should say, or whatever you want to call it. Housekeeping, that's the word I was looking for. You can catch us live every Thursday night on twitch.tv/IceTKirby around 7:00 p.m. And I say around because even today we came on about 5 after, but we will be here, and this is our target time to record, just because of how our schedules are going to work when we do get back to normal. And also, if you miss out tonight, and you're not here on Thursday, you can catch us on anchor.fm/Ice-T and the Hippogriff, which is our main platform. That is where our recordings of our shows will be. And Anchor is awesome, and they will spread our podcast out to various other platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, and much, much more. Last but not least, YouTube. If you go to our Twitch page, twitch.tv/IceTKirby, and you go onto the bottom, you will see a link to our YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is big because we actually upload these recordings of the live show, and we put them on YouTube so you can watch them there. So if you want to see my face, or if you want to see Victoria as a cartoon hippogriff, you can see it there, and you can catch all of our all of our potential mistakes as well. So, but I mean, whatever, it's more fun that way, right?
My dream.
Yeah. So yeah, and last but not least, be sure, if it's fun for you and you had a good time and you want to hear more, please follow us on Twitch. You can follow us on subscribe to us on YouTube, and obviously you can catch us on Anchor. And be sure to like those and share those, because the more shares we get and the more views we get, the more we grow, and the more we grow, the more we can offer to you guys as listeners. And I think we're doing a pretty dang good job for this is episode 3, which is really technically the 4th one, I guess. It's because we had an episode 0 as our pilot, but we've never done this before, and this is, well, at this point we have, but you know what I'm saying. We're pretty fresh. We're pretty inexperienced, and we're pretty fresh with the whole podcasting thing. So any likes and shares and views and all that fancy stuff definitely helps us go a long way. But let's jump into it. You guys have been waiting. I've been ranting about all the household chores, which is really housekeeping.
Thanks, Dad.
But
thanks, Dad.
Yeah. But yeah, this whole dating thing, man. And I only talk about it because I am experiencing it firsthand. I am one of the single solo guys out there in this COVID world. And Victoria, I believe you are also one of those single COVID survivors, correct?
Yes, I am just surviving.
Yeah, so yeah, it's an interesting time not being able to go out and physically talk to somebody, not being able to really be around them unless you're 6 feet away, and even then you can't do it in a social setting. You can't have 10 people in one room or whatever the number is now. I don't even know anymore. But
it's 10. It's 10.
It's 10. Okay. It's like, do you have the number? But so yeah, that I think changes the dynamic of the whole dating world. We went from, and this isn't even in my notes, I'm just ranting here at this point. Think about it. We went from no internet, right? Before internet, we had phones, landline phones, where if we wanted to go on a date with somebody, you either had to ask in person, which was the chivalrous way to do it, right? You had to, for the guy anyway. Let me speak from the guy's perspective, and Victoria, obviously you can give us your woman knowledge and wisdom because in this dating thing. But we had to start with eye to eye talking to each other in person dates, right? You had to ask them in person. You wanted to ask her out to the prom, you did it in person. You didn't text them. You didn't slide into their DMs on Instagram and ask them. It was, you had to be brave and talk to these people, right? And I don't know, that's gone away in my opinion. And I think from going from that into having the internet and having internet dating as not really a popular thing throughout like our childhood anyway, in our high school years, but it's after high school, or I would say around 2010, 2011, and I think it was specifically 2012 that Tinder was created and went to be a real thing. And that's when the matching started to happen. And that's when the sliding left and right, or swiping, I should say, started to happen. So going from no internet, you had to be social in person and be able to talk to these people in person and be brave about it, to going to, okay, we have the internet now and you can kind of like go to like the chat room and talk to people, ASL, age, sex, location, like, and do that. And then, and according to Khaleesi here, she says you could do video chat date on eHarmony. But, which is
any platform these days. Like,
even at that time though, eHarmony, like, I think that was like
eHarmony was the first of its kind.
Right. And I feel like at that time, it still wasn't like huge. It wasn't like everybody's doing it, It was something that like, oh, if you're single and you're having a hard time, you go on eHarmony and you kind of just like you do whatever it had to offer. But the swiping, that's Tinder, man. Tinder is what started that swiping trend. From what I know anyway, from what I've experienced in 2012. And I remember I had a friend from South Florida who was visiting Orlando when I was at UCF, and he goes, hey, and his name was Cole, by the way, and he goes, hey, like there's this app you can download on a smartphone called Tinder, and what you do is you like look at people's profiles and you swipe right if you like them, you swipe left if you don't like them, and basically like if you both like each other, it matches you so you can talk to them. And I was like, what? That's so weird and cool. I'm going to try it. And of course I tried it because I'm like a social freaking butterfly. But to go from that and then to go into what's now COVID-19, you can't go out and talk to people in person that much. Obviously, people you know, and if you know, if you know somebody and you call them on the phone, obviously. But in terms of meeting someone that you want to, if to meet someone to date, you couldn't do that, or you can't do it now. I mean, we had obviously the time after Tinder, you could still go out downtown and meet someone downtown at a bar or whatever, or meet them through an activity that you like to do. But now you can't go to the gym and meet someone at the gym. You can't go to the beach and meet someone at the beach. Well, I guess you can, even though I don't think it's the right idea at the moment. But anyway,
you can meet them across the street.
Right, but even then, it's like it's just the parameters kind of restrict a lot, right? Like the rules for COVID kind of restrict a lot of social interaction that would otherwise be enticing to people. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm nailing it on the head in terms of that, So now I just find it fascinating that the online dating world has a spike. I was gonna say it's going to spike. No, it has spiked. There's a lot more people on these apps, and I have the data written down than there was before. Because and you could, Victoria, I'm ranting. I know I'm ranting. Be free to just shut me up and say something, but it's it's just like it went from being, because like some people like, oh my god, I know I'm like scatterbrained right now, but some people look at these apps as kind of like people kind of almost, I feel like people look down on them, like, oh, you're on a dating app, it's like, you don't need that, or like oh, I would never use a dating app. It's like as if it's like not a good idea, or it's not acceptable or socially acceptable, I feel like, almost. And that was,
I grew up like that. I grew up feeling like that.
Yeah, and that's okay. And because like on the other hand, me since 2012, since Tinder, I've been on these things on and off, and I put an asterisk on and off. But there's almost no choice now until things go back to normal. But so I feel like there are a lot more people who are jumping into this dating app world for the first time, you included, right?
Okay, so not really. Like I downloaded the app. Like I remember, I forget which one of those. I downloaded that one app, Bumble. I downloaded it for like 2 days. And I don't know. I just wasn't interested in, like swiping left and like reading through a profile. I don't know. Maybe personally, I'm not ready to be dating right now. I'm not really interested in dating or meeting people. So I'm not sure that that I'll see myself, that I see myself going on one of those dating apps. But I don't know. I kind of I see this as kind of like a good thing for a lot of people, because like where I'm at is I had just got out of a relationship, and maybe perhaps if I did explore these apps a little bit more, I might see a profile of someone that does catch my attention. And this is somebody that like now I can connect with them in a way where I kind of already know them as I'm going in to send them a message, so that, we have relevant topics that we can go back and forth on, right away. And that kind of builds something up for you, and then you can start sending pictures to each other to make sure you're not getting catfished. Side note, if you're talking to somebody online for more than a week and you have not met them, you need to stop speaking to them. Okay, it's not even that serious, but you need to know who you're talking to. Okay.
I can. I fell. Oh, I'm sorry. Keep going.
I'm just saying, like, I have heard a lot of people who have been catfished before, and like that's not okay. And I met somebody online, but like we talked online for over 10 years, and we met each other, and it was legit. Like we were both who we said we were. But in this particular situation that we're in right now, it's giving you the ability to really build up to something. So instead of perhaps having your first date going to eat breakfast, where you're going to sit down and get to know each other, since you've taken the time to look at each other's profiles and get a feeling for each other's language, how I type on the internet or through my pictures, you can like base your first interaction with each other on something that's more enjoyable and agreeable for you, which in turn creates a more enjoyable experience for you. It's going to probably want you to see this person again more than we sat over a cup of coffee and enjoyed some food. That sounds so bland. And this is the digital age where they almost like asking us to do like a bunch of things at one time.
Right. And I do have a question for you now that you mention all that.
Mm.
You say you'd rather meet someone who you can talk to with similar interests and all that, and personality, and go deeper into a conversation. But a lot of these apps, unfortunately, are kind of bland. They have your information, and you can put in about me, describing yourself. But what would, if you were to try again, right? And obviously this is a what if, but if you were to try again and you were to read through these profiles, what would catch your eye? As someone who wants that deeper connection and that deeper interest, what would be something on there that would catch your eye and cause you to swipe right on them, per se?
Mm.
And I only ask because and when I say swipe right, I mean swipe right and actually like engage, because I've had the reason why I ask is because I've had so many situations where I get matched up with somebody and it looks very hopeful. It looks like it's going in a good way, and either the conversation lasts a very short amount of time or there's no conversation at all. And it's like, well, what's going on? And I know there's a lot of factors to that question, but I was just wondering from your perspective, like what would cause you to swipe right and engage with somebody on like one of these apps? It's loaded. I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, because it's almost asking like, what do I look for in a man? And like the things I've always looked for. I've always liked a man who's very intelligent, which means we can have a very layered conversation. It's an open conversation or a closed conversation. So to be truthful with you, I think the first thing that would catch me on somebody's profile, if I'm going by their physical appearance, I'm gonna go with somebody that like looks intellectual. I do enjoy working out, so like a nice intellectual looking physique, if that makes sense. And I'm I kind of like to build things. So like I wouldn't mind, like, since this would kind of be my first time, messaging them for a few days. And then, after watching all these shows, you want, I guess, try to engage them a little differently. Hey, can I call you? Or, hey, do you want to FaceTime? Like I said, I like to be outside. So perhaps this could turn into a situation where, we're texting each other and, hey, I have a bike and you might have a bike. Let's go for a bike ride.
Right.
So without physically interacting with each other, like going to a bar, going out to dinner, doing these overplayed, very exhausted things for people to do on a date. This is how we're getting to know each other, through our general interests. And then we can take time to be apart with each other, and, we could text each other again. I just feel like there's going to have to be a new approach to it, since technology is taking over and, everybody relies on that. I read this on Snapchat. I saw this on Instagram. BuzzFeed posted this, so it has to be completely accurate. So apply that to online dating. Everybody likes to drink. Everybody likes to go to a club. Everybody likes to do that. You don't need to try to create a connection with somebody where everybody's general interest is.
Right.
What about your connection with this person is more unique than the other person that you could have swiped right on?
Mm-hmm. I see.
And these are the type of conversations I like to have on my dates.
No, and that's, I almost feel like obviously everyone is who they are, but in terms of depth, I think depth makes things obviously more interesting and more digestible in terms of a conversation, because everyone's had the conversation where they kind of put out as much as they can, and then the other person kind of doesn't, and that's fine, because like obviously, and just like one of our Twitch members says, they don't owe you their time. No one owes each other their time, and I get that. But it's also in terms of dating apps, it's like you might not owe you their time, but it's also how can I say this without being offensive? You're disservicing.
It's your choice to go hang out with them.
No,
it is your choice.
Well, I'm saying not I'm trying to say this without being like a jerk, because I don't mean this in an offensive way, but although you might not owe them your time, and I don't owe anyone my time, I'm also not on this app for other reasons other than to date, which is what the app was designed for. And if you're on the app to do something else other than date, you are kind of disservicing the people that are trying to date. Does that make sense? By matching with somebody and then essentially playing a game and not committing, but not at least putting in an effort, you know? And like I know this is we're gonna hop back on the rails here with COVID, but you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like I've been I don't want to say victim, but I've been a part of that situation where conversations start, you match with someone and you're excited to talk to them, and they talk to you a little bit, and then they just kind of die off. They're, you know, I hate ghosting. I don't care who you are. Ghosting, I feel like, is very rude. And I mean, obviously, if it's called for, yeah. But if it's just a nice conversation, and then all of a sudden you just think, I don't want to talk to this person anymore. Coming just from my perspective, I'm gonna at least let that person know, hey, I'm sorry, like I'm not feeling the connection. I think I'm gonna move on.
Just say you're not
and
interested.
And I know that's tough for people to agree with for some reason. I don't think I find it hard to. I don't know. It's and I would like to argue this because I read something in the chat, but the apps are designed for dating, right? Obviously, there has been a direction where people go on there to date, people go on there to not date, people go on there for attention, people go on there for blah 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 blah. From my perspective, that sucks because that's tainting the purpose of something that could work wonderfully, and it doesn't because of the mixture of people. And I understand, I get it. Like, you don't have to go on there to date if you don't want to. I get that. Yeah, everyone's a human and they have their own thing that they want to do, but it's like it's unfair almost for like the little guy who does want to date, and then they meet somebody and then it turns out they just wanted them to follow them on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's right. They have the right to do it, but I don't agree and think that is the right thing to do, if that makes sense.
I agree with you. I completely understand where you're coming from because, yeah, you know what? Overall, it's rude. Nobody likes to be mistreated by anybody for any reason. But what I am going to say is, listen, like I said, like I've always been very like pro against online dating. And it's really interesting when you are against something and you allow yourself the opportunity to like understand things, you can, you can acknowledge it so that you may have a changed perspective. But that's the beauty with online dating, Jesse. It's just sort of like The Bachelor. It's just sort of like those video dates from like the 70s and the 80s where they would like record individual people and mail them out that were subscribed to that. This edition of online dating is something that's been around for a long time. We're just getting a more accessible version of it. And I don't think that people should approach it with that, like, oh, I'm a little upset that this isn't working as well as it should because this is what's going on. The purpose of this app is for you to be able to freely, without anybody's business, because it's your life. This app is there for you to freely talk to like 15, 20, 30 different people. And as that's going on, like, who are you speaking more to? Who are these general interests that are being piqued? And suddenly they just kind of weed themselves out. And it's the fact that you're giving yourself the opportunity to speak to a variety of women who are different. There's not going to be one that's the same. So you really have the opportunity to taste every flavor and be like, which one of these am I going to put on my food? It's
right.
We're not kids anymore. We got to be real with ourselves. We've had our hearts broken. We're getting older. Some of us want children. Some of us want to travel. Some of us just want to have somebody to take care of or for them to take care of them. So when you are doing this is like an interview process. You apply for a job, 75 people apply for this job, and this is how many spots I have open for you. So I think that coming out of COVID-19, this is a really good opportunity in a positive way for online dating to like really help structure a new age of dating based on your general interests now. Because now, who knows, you could talk to 30 people and meet 3 of them after all this is said and done.
Right. And let me while we're on the topic of dating apps, because I mean obviously that's what we're here for. We mentioned Bumble, and this is from Vanity Fair. This is an article on Vanity Fair that I found last week. This is the spike. I mentioned the spike earlier of the usage of these apps, and I'm going to give you some numbers here. Bumble saw an 84% increase in video calls in the United States. Now, Bumble's video calling system is, I think, fairly new, but they saw a huge increase in video chats and video calls, which is actually, I think that's very, it all makes sense to me. Like, you know, like, you can't see your friend in person, or not your friend, but you can't see your match, in person. The next best thing you can do is obviously video chat them, right? I mean, and then phone call and then text and so on and so forth. But so they saw an 84% increase in that, along with their messaging in general. Their general text messaging or messaging on their app went up by 26%. And obviously these increases in percentages, I think it's again, it makes a lot of sense that people are stuck inside and they can't talk or socialize with strangers or people they want to date in person. The next best thing is to grab one of these apps and start, you know, cracking your phone with your finger because you're swiping so hard. So along with that, and I'll read a few other ones. A few of the other apps. Hinge, they registered a 30% increase in messaging, so even more so than Bumble. Hinge is similar to. Actually, let me not say that. It is not similar to Bumble, because Bumble and Tinder are similar because you just see the picture and then you see a profile and you swipe left to right. Hinge is more of like a slower, realized kind of dating system. You have profiles still. You can like the picture and you can make a comment as your form of swiping right, I guess you can say. You can like a set of quotes. So like Hinge gives you a preset or a pre-made set of like fill in the blanks, essentially. Like, oh, do you like the beach or the mountains? And you pick one, or you pick both, or whatever. Or like, you know, if you had a last meal to have before the end of the world, what would it be? Like mine was Chipotle, you know, like, and people can actually comment on those answers too. So that's like the form of liking. And also in Hinge, and this I agree with, there is a limited number of likes you can have unless you pay for it, right? So the free version, you can only like 10 people a day. And in my opinion, I love that because it does limit the abuse of the app, if that makes sense. So people that are like, so guys who are liking things like a fishnet and just like swiping right on everybody and then not caring like who they get, like it kind of it nullifies that in a way. You know what I mean? Like it's not just, you can't just like everyone and then essentially waste people's time, right?
Sure.
So, you know, let me continue here. The League, which is I can go on and on about the League. The League is a dating app that's very exclusive, and you have to get on like a waiting list. It's free, but you have to get on like a waiting list with like thousands of people in order to like start using it. And then once you start using it, it also only lets you have 3 matches a day, or 3 likes a day, I should say. And they have launched their League Live feature, which is basically speed dating but through video chat. So like you're paired up with people from your area or from your state or whatever, and you have like a 3-minute chat session, and then you go to the next person, and then you have another 3-minute chat session, and I guess if you like the other person and they like you, then it matches you up. And then the last thing I got from this Vanity Fair article was Tinder made its passport mode, which is where you can swipe with people from outside of your location. It made that free, so, and that was in March. So you're able to go on Tinder and essentially say, "Oh, I'm from Japan," and you can start matching with people from Japan, even though you're nowhere near Japan. And I believe that passport mode is essentially a paid feature normally, but they made it free during COVID-19. So I don't know. the spike, I think, is obvious. I think that was bound to happen. What's interesting to me is the way if it's being used. That's kind of the angle I wanted to see at. I wanted to see, are people going to take this more seriously during COVID-19, or are they just on it to F around? That bottom line. I just want that's where I think it's interesting. I've noticed an increase in matches. I will say that. However, from my phone, from my perspective, I have not seen an increase in conversation. That makes sense.
Don't waste each other's time. Just get right to it, Jesse. You've been at home long enough. You've had time to think things through. Ask them. Get right to it. I
am not one to get on there and waste time. And I said this before. If I'm not interested in someone, if I've talked to someone for a few days and I'm just not feeling it, I'm the one who will say, it was nice talking to you and everything, but this, that, and the other. That's me. Obviously, not everyone's me. And that's probably for the better, but I just want to be the good guy and all that kind of stuff. I want to be the guy who says, I'm sorry, I'm not going to keep you here and keep you waiting for no reason.
Right.
I don't think anyone deserves that. I really don't. Whether they owe it to you or not, no one deserves to be led on or essentially messed with.
It's time you don't get that back. Don't waste it. Just be honest.
It's time you don't get back. Right. It's time you don't get back. You could have been doing something else and putting your efforts into something else. So I don't know. What do you got on your end, Victoria? You said you had some stuff to share, article wise, right?
Yeah, I found some really interesting statistics, especially just going forward, especially with this online dating, as far as what women find as good qualities in men, and dating statistics that off all online dating users, 47% are women and 54% are men. So the gap isn't too wide as far as people who are interested. It's really interesting because in public, men are not so quick to approach women. It's almost just a way to say, behind their phone, are you more eager to initiate a conversation?
I can answer that right now, and Twitch chat, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's intimidating to a lot of men. It's intimidating, or here's the other half of that coin. Or men, I feel like at this point, men almost don't try because they feel like they already know the outcome, and obviously that outcome is not a good outcome. Does that make sense?
That's off-putting. Yes.
It's not necessarily being afraid. It's not necessarily being afraid of asking. It's more just being like, oh, well, even if I do go up to her, she's probably just going to say no. So why even try? You know what I mean?
And of course, that's really off-putting from the get-go. And it's so sad because that molds it molds something in your mind, like a stigma. I can't approach women because they are just going to say no. And then that puts this really awful light on women. Not all women are bad. Some women really just don't want to be approached. Other women know, no. For men, just like a guessing game sometimes. It's not a big deal, but it's not a bad spot. That's what I'm saying. Gender roles and this with the online roles coming in, things could change very drastically.
I want you to. There's a question I think for you in chat, Victoria. Danjo Draws asks, what qualities do you look for in men?
See,
I kind of asked that earlier, but I mean, I know it's
it's a loaded question. The qualities are I want a man who is active, somebody that's got a very open mind that we could talk about multiple perspectives, somebody that we can dig into each other, share very special and deep conversations with.
Victoria, you take me as a very, very deep person. Every conversation we have, we go off the deep end right into that 12-foot pool, and then we barely make it back up for air.
It's the truth, and I live for those conversations because it tells me about you.
DeAudre says 12 feet isn't that deep. Shut up. DeAndre. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's I enjoy deep conversation. I mean, that's why we're doing this, right? This whole podcasting thing was to kind of dive deeper into these things that we just want to talk about, and I think that's an attractive thing. If you can talk deep, if you're not the one just and I'm bringing up the apps again, if you're not the one just saying hi, what's up, you're probably going to be someone I want to talk to, or that's a good first impression. Because if I get like the hi, and then I'm like, oh hey, how are you? How's your night going? And you just say good, I'm going to be like, all right. Are you trying to talk to me or not? Like, like, do you want to know about me or not?
You gotta really put the effort in. Like I remember one time I encountered somebody who will remain nameless, and they told me a little bit about their background,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very intrigued. So I did some reading up on it. At which point I replied back with a question about like an instrument native to their country, and this person wrote back to me. He said, "That was the sexiest thing in the whole world." For you to just be like genuinely interested in things like that, like that was
Yeah.
so sexy. You know, it's you have to you can't be afraid. Like whether you're online or in person, you really just gotta go for it. You know, shoot and miss or shoot and score. But
I need to get better at that too. In all honesty, it's funny. And before we go to, by the way, Twitch chat and everybody on Anchor, we are going to take a break today. We're going to do a 5-minute break between segments, so just be ready for that. But before we go to break, I do want to say, it's funny. Whenever it doesn't matter, whenever I'm talking to a stranger or whatever, and it doesn't matter, that's when the confidence is at its peak. I can do a joke. I can do a prank. I can do things that are out of most people's comfort zones when it doesn't matter, to me, if that makes sense. I can play truth or dare or whatever and streak the neighborhood at midnight or something like that. I can do stuff like that. But it's funny, as soon as it matters, as soon as it is someone that I want to talk to, or if it's like a really pretty girl or woman, and I do want to talk to them and I want to make a good impression and all that, that's when the fear sets in. That's when the self-doubt sets in. That's when the, I don't know, man, sets in, if that makes sense.
You don't want to fail. You don't want to be embarrassed. You're
right.
conscious of that.
And I feel like I need to move past that. And I'm sure I might be talking for other men. I don't know. But this is for me. That's the stuff I need to get better at is to be able to go in and talk to somebody and just not give a crap, Just whatever happens. Like, there's plenty of fish in the sea. And obviously for someone who's single for a really long time, plenty of fish in the sea doesn't seem like plenty, if that makes sense. If you haven't dated in 3 years, but you've been trying and you've known, like you've met someone and it didn't work out repetitively, plenty of fish in the sea doesn't seem like plenty of fish because you're not catching any, if that makes sense. Like you're actually not engaging, and you're not setting an impression and catching someone's eye for a long time, for years. So I can see where like someone might get nervous. It's like, oh, here's my one shot, and if I mess up, that's it. Then I'm back to square one, and it's like that. I can see where that's scary to some men and probably some women. When you don't get matches every 2 seconds, because there's some people out there. Obviously, there's people who do get matches all the time, and they can kind of swipe right on an app and get a match, and it's no problem. But there's also people out there who they'll spend a lot of time on these dating apps, for example, and this is, I'm using the apps as a platform, but whether it's an app or in person, doesn't matter. There's people who have probably tried a lot of times in person or on the apps who just don't have that draw. They don't have that pull. And I can go deep on this. I can say, I know people who are kind of douchebags who get better game, essentially, and I put quote unquote game, and they get better game than the nice guy who's not. And I'm not speaking for me, so don't look at me, chat, and assume that I'm talking about myself. I might be talking about Austin here in the chat, but they're handsome as hell and they're kind as hell, but they just don't get a draw. They don't get draw. And then there's the douchebags who they kind of just can snap their fingers and they'll have someone wrapped around their pinky. And it's like, well, how does that work? And that goes beyond the apps, you know? But anyway, let's take a break here. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. We're going to come in with another segment on dating. I have some other articles here, and I think, Victoria, you have another article too, right?
I have a lot of statistics today.
Yeah, Victoria has some statistics. We will get back to you in about 5 minutes. This is Ice-T and the Hippogriff. Welcome back to Ice-T and the Hippogriff. I am here with the Twitch live recording as well as you can find us, by the way, you can find us on anchor.fm /Ice-T-Kirby, or Ice-T and Hippogriff, I should say. Victoria's with me still. Hello, Victoria.
Hello. Welcome back.
Awesome. I am going to fade us out, and we can continue now on our dating topic here. We got to talk to the chat. We got to talk to the Twitch chat during the break a lot, which is pretty cool. And I think we will start using a 5-minute break every recording from now on. So we'll have that ready to go. But what we have, or I guess I'll start here. I have an article for dating during COVID, okay? But this is an expert, and I put expert in quotes because the article put expert in quotes. Now, this is a Yahoo article, and her name, and for anyone in the chat, let me know if you know this person. I doubt it, but her name is Serena Kerrigan, not to be mixed up with Kerrigan, the character from StarCraft. Not the same person. Not Sarah Kerrigan. We have Serena Kerrigan. She is the dating expert, and she is a self-proclaimed queen of confidence. And she has shared 7 of her best tips for singles entering the brave new world of virtual dating. So hopefully we can enlighten some people in the chat who are looking for a significant other, or even myself, because I am also in that boat. So let me jump into this. Serena, she loves technology. She believes in the virtual world. And she says step 1 to her guide on virtual dating is this. And that is jump right in. And I'll read this from the article. Don't get bogged down with the specifics, says Kerrigan. Be like, hey, want to FaceTime in an hour? I'm about to make myself a drink. Would love to chat with you. That's what she says. That's an example of a tactic, you should say, when referring to asking someone out on these virtual apps. Kerrigan told in the no video chats are underrated. She says that they're mostly stripped down versions of a date, and they're a great way to get to know someone for who they truly are. She urges daters to just go for it and stop worrying about the unconventional way of video dating. Victoria, I'm going to let you have the floor on that. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's a really nice way to introduce yourself. The approach is perfect. Like, it's straight to the point. You know, for somebody that you don't know, for somebody that you really want to get to know, if you're just going to send them a paragraph long text message right away, like that communicates to this other person before they even know you that you're probably a little needy. You're probably going to be someone that, texts them a lot during the day. So it's almost like before you even sit down and dedicate a half an hour to this person that you will never get back, you immediately know right off the bat a trait about this person. Before you go in and spend money on this person, you sit down and you get yourself ready. And you guys get to see each other, and it's not awkward. Like, we've all heard a weird and an awful first date story. So this alleviates a lot of problems. I think it's a great tactic.
I'm going to also agree, because think about it. Video dating is unconventional, and that's what's weird about it, right? Oh, we're not used to it. We don't do it that much. Well, now we do, but before, back when this whole dating app thing was kind of new and people weren't really used to like dating on apps and all that, it was unconventional, and for a lot of people, especially probably older generations, it is unconventional. But think about it. A video date is essentially talking to somebody, seeing what they look like, talking to them with your voice and not through a text. The only difference is you're not in the same room. You're just not physically there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I mean, that's almost no different than meeting someone in person somewhere. You know what I mean? In terms of the conversation, obviously, there are other factors that are involved with meeting someone in person versus the virtual world. But I mean, you're talking to them. There's video footage of them. They are live. I mean, unless you have government like technology that can like do the whole virtual like refacial kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like you know how there's like technology
Filters.
where like you can like get like you can get like the president to like say things, and it's like a computer generated like the voice based off like X amounts of recordings of that person's voice. But you don't just have that lying around. You know what I mean? It's not like that's not something that's going to be common yet. But I would say as for now, I mean, there's no what's the downside, you know? Like
Saves you money, and if anything, the only bad part is that you're not out leaving the house. At the same part, like, you know, a bigger domino effect of good things happens if you stay home, you know.
Yeah.
At least you make your own drinks at home. You're comfortable at home. So this alleviates a lot of things. Is someone looking at me? Is someone checking out my date? I hope I don't run into somebody that I don't want to run into and ruin this date for me.
And obviously, and like I know Dan Joe Draw has made a funny comment. He says that's better than real life when it comes to intimacy. I'd rather be physically apart. I get that. And you know, I get the fact that there's physical intimacy that is that is missing. But obviously, specifically if we're talking about COVID and not being able to interact in person, I mean, what else would be the next best thing, you know? And as far as jumping right in, I mean, if you're afraid because it's unconventional and you're not used to it, and it's, oh, I've never done a video chat before, like I don't know if I should. I'm going to agree with Kerrigan on this. I think you should just do it. The only way to do it is to do it, and if you don't do it, you're never going to do it. So do it.
I mean, before we move on, I just want to, like, you know, that's the same concept for everything you do in your life. There's absolutely, like the saying, if it were easy, everybody would do it. If it were easy for a man to approach a woman, they'd be doing it. If it were easy for people to do 100 push-ups, they would do it. You know, so it's you have to be open to new experiences. Period. Times are changing, and as far as Darwin is concerned, you're either going to adapt or you will falter.
And as Sky Shadex says in the Twitch chat, go big or go home. And I'm gonna say yes to that. I'm gonna put the Harriton, Jesse, Ice T Kirby stamp of approval on that. I think you should just do it. You know, you can't really get away with the catfishing if you're talking to them face to face on a live feed. You know,
exactly.
Let's move on to step 2 here. Kerrigan says, dress the part for step 2. They want to see the best version of you, and you will only be the best version of you if you feel good about yourself, says Serena Kerrigan. Dress for the virtual date the same way you would for an in-person one, by putting on whatever makes you feel confident. That could be a formal dress or a head-to-toe tie-dye. So whatever feels confident for her. And of course, she has a picture of her cheesing real hard with a tie-dye sweater, which I guess was part of her point. But anyway, yeah, I agree with this too. I do think if you're going to dress up and go on a date and dress to impress or whatever you want to call it, yeah, do it. If that's not who you are, obviously don't do it. If you are not one to dress to impress, and that's just how you are, and you're not looking for someone who's looking for that, then dress however you would normally dress on a date. Me, yeah, I'm gonna probably wear the button-down collared flower shirt, but that's just me. What do you think, Victoria?
I think how you dress has a lot to say about your personality.
Okay.
It has a lot to say about you as a person. If you are somebody that does dress comfortable, you know, that's your style and go for it. I'm not telling you to not dress comfortable, but you need to kind of dress in a way that says to me, am happy to be here. I want to be here. I am interested in your affection. I'm interested in your attention. And like I get it, for some people that is just a t-shirt and some basketball shorts, but you know, that's for some people that's just not a first impression. Like you have to be willing to see their go through both perspectives here. You know, there's some commercials where they say if your clothes are stretchy, you know, they're like worn and you're lazy, but some people are comfortable in that. You know, my personal preference, me too. I enjoy getting dressed up. I sincerely feel beautiful, all that effort that goes into it, these nice outfits and such. So, you know, I want to impress. Like I'm happy with myself. I am happy you're in my life and to be sharing these things with you. So even if it is my first time seeing you, I am eager to share my thoughts with you. I am eager to engage you and see how deep we go. It's a but you know, hey look, if the day calls, you know, let's sweatpants and a t-shirt, let's go. You can have a philosophical conversation.
I'm gonna agree with one of our Twitch chat members here. Groking You says, I love wearing semi-formal clothing, but sometimes too much. And I'm gonna go ahead and say I love wearing not even just semi-formal. I love wearing like I'm a guy, if you give me a chance to dress up in the tuxedo, I'll dress up in the tuxedo. That's just how I am. Like, not even for dating. I'm saying like in general. I do enjoy dressing up a bit. I love an occasion, and if it's an occasion where I can dress up, I will. I don't know if if I'm going on like a first date with somebody and it doesn't require formal clothes, no, I'm not going to wear a tuxedo on my first date to freaking Disney Springs or something. But, you know, However, I mean, I have dressed up formally for a first date. We went to it was what they call an adult prom, and no, it wasn't rated X. It wasn't like that kind of prom. It was legitimately just a prom, like dance kind of thing, like a party where everyone was supposed to dress up into like prom clothing, and you were able to go and like have drinks, and they had some food and prizes and stuff. It was fun. It was worth it. It was like $20, and I did go. I brought a date, and she dressed up in her like dress, and that was a very cool experience. So yes, I will agree with Miss Serena here. I believe you know, dress your confidence. Whatever makes you feel like you're gonna succeed, dress that way.
You have to. Can I lead this next one? I really want to
go for it.
It directly ties into that, like how you're dressed when you're getting ready for this date. Number 3, you need to hype yourself up. The best advice anybody ever gave me was, Victoria, men are like buses. There's always one coming. And, you know, I was a kid when she said this to me, so it really deeply resonates with me. You know, just because one comes and one does not work, it does not mean that there's not going to be somebody else.
Whoa.
So you need to be able to look at yourself in the mirror, no matter what, if it's your first time, your 5th time, or your 20th time. I am a bad bitch. I am beautiful. I am smart. I have all the things in the world to offer a man.
I have to stop you. Like, I have to stop you because the Twitch chat is picking up what I'm picking up, and oh man. The way you just said everything just sounded explicit. And if you look at the chat, they just took that the complete wrong way. They took their car and they just went off the wrong exit with that. And
you drove off the deep end. You guys, but like I explained myself. I was explaining it, you know.
We get it.
I know.
Because you said like, oh, the guy's gonna come or something, and then men are like
move
buses. On or
men are like buses. You guys. At least you will remember what it is I'm trying to educate you on. No, I'm here for education.
I'm sorry. No, I get what you're saying though. In all seriousness, I'm still following you. It's just funny that
You know what,
I was
Joe?
thinking it,
Thank
and
you.
then I was thinking it, and then I looked at the chat and I saw Easy put the emoji with the guy with his eyes wide open, and I was like, oh God, no.
Teaching. I was free.
No,
You don't have to pay me for that.
I agree. Let me read what she says. She says, for step 3, hype yourself up. She says, if they don't vibe with you, cool. There will be another one. There always is. And she's right.
I like my analogy better. I like mine better.
She's right. Now this is where I can kind of split hairs. I would almost say I agree for her. You know, she's obviously well known. She's an expert. She's probably always going to have an option. But if we're thinking about a woman who might not be as fortunate, I guess I don't know how else to put it, as her, there might not always be another one, you know? And obviously for men, I could say the same thing, you know, there might not always be. Now, am I saying don't hype yourself up? No, you should always try to help yourself up and be as confident as you can. But and there probably will be, you know, there's 7 billion people on the planet. There's going to be someone for you. But to say that there always is, always, I mean, maybe for me there always might be, but I mean, I might be 45.
Consideration.
You know, and I still haven't found someone. And, you know, obviously we don't know our futures. We're not psychic unless someone in chat's psychics. But what?
You have to have the glass is half full perspective always. You know, it's like I said, you know, personally, like I've never done this online dating thing, but you really need to start looking at this from like a very positive perspective. Okay. There are 7 billion people on the earth. You know, I am Victoria Sorrentino and I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And through the invention of the internet, I could potentially meet somebody in California, South America. I can meet somebody 5 miles up the street from me, and they're my match. You know, it's not to say that it's forever because there's no such thing. Like back in the day, mating and getting married was for survival. Now that we're older and we're evolving, you know, this could be like a temporary thing for you. You know, we all saw that Rick and Morty episode, the Love Finders episode. How many people, like how many pairs were they paired up with before they shut down the app?
I'm
You
sure.
know, is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Like how is hype yourself up and looking at rejection different? How can we turn rejection into a positive thing? Because it's even worse if you go out in public and you guys are just straight like not vibing. Like now everybody's looking at you and that's embarrassing. Like how do you recover from that? Some people don't.
Well, I think let me say this first before I answer that question that you just mentioned. You said hyping yourself up and turning a negative thing into a positive thing, and me I'm pretty optimistic. I'm pretty positive. I see it as this: if this person doesn't like me, and they tell me, or I find out somehow, and is it a downer? Yes, but I've learned something, and I think that's the bottom line: is you learn what you want through essentially rejection, you know. And you learn about the qualities of people, and you learn how the dating field almost works, you know, like you kind of pick up on things sooner. Like even now, and this goes all the way back to what we talked about in the beginning. Like I can almost feel like sometimes I can read an expression on someone's face, or I can tell even through text sometimes, like the way they're responding or the amount of time that takes for them to reply. And obviously there's plenty of factors involved, but I'm pretty confident in saying, like, most of the time when I get feedback in a certain way, I almost know, like, yeah, I feel like, you know, this person's probably not into me. And I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but a lot of the time I'm usually right. Like, and that's all just from experience, you know, like I've kind of learned, especially when it comes to like messaging on these apps, like I can almost tell when someone is interested, or if someone was interested and they met somebody else. That's happened to me plenty of times too. Where like like a conversation starts off really great and it's going, and then there's just like a day where like all of a sudden like they're just not responding. They're not as engaged. They're not asking enough questions or initiating as much, you know.
But it goes back to that. it goes
Right.
back to like this is an experience. Like for somebody that is a seasoned online dater, when you do start chatting with people, if they are not, it's like I was saying, like, if you're talking to them for this long, you need to meet each other. And if not, you need to move on. So this is a situation where if you're talking to them and you just notice that this is the direction it's starting to go in, just drop it and move along. There's
No,
nothing
a,
wrong
a
with
thousand percent, a thousand
that.
percent.
That's a stigma that I think a lot of people going into this new generation of dating, and I think for me personally too, is something that was always very hard to understand. We're going to be here for a very long time.
And
What I liked when I was 15 years old, I don't like anymore. So it's even to say in the application of somebody that you're with, like this most recent relationship I was just in, we mostly just listened to electronic music. Coming
uh-huh.
into this relationship, that's not something I was really listening to. I was listening to pretty much everything else. In high school, I listened to a lot of metal and punk and hardcore music. And, here I am now where I listen to just everything out of this relationship and I'm like free of my own things,
I do want to yeah, I do want to say this. I think the difference though, and someone in chat brought also kind of answered this as well. The hard part of being rejected, especially on these apps, or if it's not working out, or if it looks like it's working out and all of a sudden it just falls short. I think the hard part for everybody is the fact that everyone's reception or everyone's success isn't the same, right? Because for some people it is easy to say, "Oh, I've been ghosted. Let's just move on to the next one." But for some people, there isn't a next one, ready to go. And like sometimes that next one is 2 months or more away, if that makes sense. And I'm just throwing out numbers, but I feel like for some people who have the luxury of having options, and I hate to put it that way, but it's kind of true. Like they have people they can fall back on, or they have people they can just that are waiting on them. It's easy to say, oh, well, I can just move on and next. But for some people where it might look hopeful for a while and then all of a sudden it falls short and nothing happens and then they're just kind of left out, and it's like, well, it's disappointing and discouraging when they feel or they even might even know like, hey, the next one I probably won't match with somebody or get connected with somebody probably for a long time again. And it's so far and few between where it just being like, oh, move on. It's like, I can see where that's hard to do. Does that make sense? Like, it's like, yeah, for someone like if I'm Adonis, the Greek, the god or whatever, yeah. Oh, well, she ditched me. She's not interested. Of course, it would be easy for Adonis to just like, oh, well, there's always the next one because there's probably going to be a next one very soon. If not, there's already like 10 of them in his inbox ready to go. But for Joe Schmo, who he might be losing his hair a bit, and he's not necessarily muscle bound, and might not be like a top pick for a lot of women, the next one isn't just right there to go, ready to go. You know what I mean? And obviously, patience. Yeah, I get it. Patience is a virtue, and I agree. But like, if you're waiting for years for something to work out, and it's like you have goals, you want to have a family. And you want to build something and have a home and have a child, but you just can't. You see what I'm saying? And I understand fate in life. It's maybe it'll work out for you, maybe not. But it's like to say this, and this kind of goes full circle back to the whole there will be another one. There always is. Well, is there? Is there always going to be just another one? You know what I mean? Like.
Of course. Jesse, like I get where you're coming from, and between me and you, like I think this is a discussion that maybe we could like carry on for later, but like listen, like there's nothing wrong, and I believe somebody in the chat even mentioned it too. Kami fan club, there's nothing wrong with being alone.
Shimmy fan club. No, keep going. I'm sorry, Victoria. Keep going.
And it's the same thing here where you're saying, there might not be somebody immediately available. There's nothing wrong with being alone. The problem, I'm a substitute teacher. Like I'm trained in butchering names. There's nothing wrong with being alone. You come into this world alone, you go out of this world alone. And in order for you to be comfortable and available emotionally, I psychologically and monetarily to somebody else. Like you need to be 100% comfortable with yourself. And it's really I hate to say, you know, beauty fades, brains are forever. Like I know a lot of people that we went to school with, Jesse, that
Hmm.
between me and you, I'm not trying to be narcissistic or rude. Like I consider myself to be, more than decently attractive. But like there are some people that we went to school with that are married and with
Hmm.
children, and like they're living that part of their life that you are talking expressing so much excitement about, and they're doing that.
Right.
Maybe you and I don't necessarily think that they're the most attractive people, but who are you to tell me that attractiveness yields what level of happiness?
Right.
It doesn't. And when you put these types of ideas out there, it's not developing your personal growth. It's almost to say that somebody who may not be as attractive as you or myself supplements it in another way. Like they supplement it with nurture or care or attention or a
Hmm.
trait that is just so easy to miss, that you can now explore with online dating.
Right. No.
Some people are love their cats and they see it on an online date. I really like that you like your cats. It tells me that you're a caring and compassionate person. So in the real world, when a caring and compassionate situation comes up, I know that I'm going to get that from you. And just the fact that it's 6 months, 8 months, or a year until you get another swipe is irrelevant, because that just means you are not ready to just settle for something, and somebody else is not ready to just settle for just anything, because you can't just have a kid with anybody. You need to like.
No, yeah, I understand. That makes sense. Let's move on. We got to move on because we're doing great on time, and I just want to stop and just take a pause and just acknowledge. I love the interaction from the chat. The chat seems really engaged today. I'm glad this is an engaging topic. So this has been a great time so far. But uh,
Mm.
step 4. Wow, we're only on step 4. Kerrigan says to initiate the conversation. Kerrigan recommended skipping as much as small talk as possible. Excuse me. Don't be afraid to ask your date deep questions. Chances are they've spent quite a bit of time in their quarantine and they're probably thinking things through. Victoria, I would assume that you're 100% on this. Like you're the master of deep conversations.
Yeah.
And just to speed through this specific step here, I agree with this as well. Small talk, how was your day is great, but just get to asking questions. Get to the part of getting to know somebody. What do you do for a living?
Hmm.
Oh, what's that? What's it like? Expand on it. Whenever they give you an answer, I always try to expand on what they do. Like I don't just say, "Oh, that's cool." I say like, "Oh, you do this for a job. What is that like? Like, what do you have to do for that job?" And that's just
Oh,
an example I'm throwing out there. But I try to act. I try not act. I don't want to say act because that sounds
fake.
negative. But I actually want to know about this person and what they do and how they do it. What do you think on that?
No, I think I feel the same way. I want to get to know you. I want to tap into you. If you're somebody that can really like uh provide a deep answer, like, hey, what do you do for a living? And like, what does that entail? It tells me that you're proud about what you're doing, which, I can pick your brain a little bit on things that you're all other interests and other passions, and getting the age that we're getting to, we can't just be going on a date. Like you said, how was your day? What would you like to do? You need to start like these get to know each other questions. I don't need to know how much is in your bank account right away, but I would kind of like to know, I'm on a career path and this is my goal. Tell
Right.
me a way that like the time that we're spending together, like we are going to develop something.
Mm-hmm.
So, that comes in all parts of this date though.
No, I agree. For step 5 by Kerrigan, and you can take the lead on this if you want, Victoria. What is step 5 that you have on your screen?
Step 5 is value your time. Um, she says, Kerrigan says, it's best to lower the stakes and leave your date wanting more. Okay. If you meet somebody that you're creating a really nice connection with, because obviously, if it's someone that you're not connecting with, you're not going to be interested in spending time with them. You're going to want to if this is somebody you're interested in, you're just going to want to talk to them and talk to them and talk to them. The conversation is just so engaging. You don't want it to end. You want to get to like the ends of every topic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to know when to stop, and either change the subject or, hey, I got to let you go. It does. It leaves them with that sense of longing. It gives them the time to actually miss you, to, redevelop that affection, for me to like really appreciate that touch when I get it back.
I think this is where I might fail the most. And I'm going to expose myself to the internet right now. This is where I feel like I might be messing up. And I've had a friend of mine tell me in her own metaphor to this, the time thing. It says the most magical part of a first date is the anticipation of a second one. So cap it at 1 hour or 2 drinks. Don't let the fact that you could stay take away from that magic. And I feel like maybe that's where I kind of mess up. Because I'm the guy who I don't get sick of things too much. I'm not the one who I'm not going to want to go home. Obviously, if I'm having a bad time, yeah. But if I'm having a good time, I'm not going to be the guy who wants to go home. I'm not going to say like, well, it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to head out and I'll see you some, that's just not how I am. And maybe that just needs to be something that I need to be, because too much of a good thing isn't always good. Right. That's kind of what this is. This is sort of what that's saying, right? Like you don't want
much of a good thing is bad.
Right. You don't want to overdo it and by the second date have nothing to say. And so that's something I feel like personally I might need to work on in terms of even just chat. Because like, for example, my friend said, and I was going to say this, I just got distracted. My friend said like, oh, you might be petting the cat too hard. And I know the chat's going to go crazy with what I just said. They might be, they're going to go, but no, it makes sense. Like she's like dating, like talking to a girl, based off what she said, is kind of like petting a cat. Like if you pet this cat too much or too hard, the cat's gonna run away, right? Like if you're too excited almost. And half of me agrees, but the other half of me is like, well, if she likes me, she likes me, and that's the tug of war that kind of goes in my brain is like I don't like the whole idea of like this game, right? The whole thing, like people say like, oh, dating's a game, and like you have to talk to them, but then you have to like reel it back so they try to talk to you, or don't talk to them too much, because then they're gonna think you're needy or whatever. And it's like, well, hell, man, like if they like me and they're interested in getting to know me, shouldn't they just want to talk to me anyway? Period. Like forget the whole game. Like I feel
not a problem.
But at the same time, I almost feel like, yeah, like maybe there is a game that people like to play, and I don't even think they're trying to play it consciously. Like it's almost like a subconscious game, like their brain is just subconsciously like, all right, he's talking too much. He's probably too crazy, or he's too needy, or like whatever. And it's like, but that. If two people are enjoying each other's time and conversation, it's like, where's the harm in that? But at the same time, the other half of me that's on kind of on board with what Kerrigan here is saying is, like don't what's the word? With the poker reference, like where you like don't put all your chips in the first conversation, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like don't use all your don't go all. And I get that too, because like you don't want to say everything and do everything and speak everything and leave nothing for the next time. And I get that, but so on this one, I'm like 75% I agree, and I feel like through experience I'm slowly learning to agree as well. But when people say like dating's a game and like you need to like I've literally had people like guide me in conversations with women. Like saying like, oh, you should say it this way because it doesn't look needy and like this, that, and the other. It's like, well, dude, but am I being myself then? If I'm trying to say it like this so they stay, is that being myself? Not really. Isn't myself what you know what I mean? All right, sorry. No, but did you catch my cold here?
Well, listen,
sort
I
of?
understand, I understand,
Okay.
and, like, listen, I agree with you, like, it's different people, different things, and, that's also you just with the experience of filtering out those people, like, this is somebody that I can see myself having extended conversation with, this is somebody that I can't see myself having extended conversations with, and that's why you put the expert in quotes, because, this is really her opinion based on, like, her research, what has worked for her audiences, like, I agree with you. Like in my most recent relationship, like we spent all of our time together. Like for the 2.5 years we were together, we saw each other
Mhm.
every single day, every single day. And
Now,
at a certain point,
before you move on, you saw each other every single day, but was that during the dating stage or the relationship stage? See what I'm saying?
that was during the whole thing. Like we got back from EDC and like we started texting each other, and when we went out for a couple dates and we realized that we vibe with each other,
Hmm.
instead of just like working out and going our separate ways, it turned into, hey, we're done working out. Do you want to like come over and hang out? And that turned into like, hey, we worked out and we're hanging out. Do you want to go get dinner? And then more so like as like once we by the time we started dating each other, we were pretty much seeing each other every single day and pretty much giving each other all the free time that we could. And for the beginning part of it, it was great. And then at a certain point in the relationship, I had to ask myself, where am I giving myself the time to like be with myself, develop my abilities and skills? Because I was just spending all my time with him. So,
Right.
after a while, you need to start finding that fulfillment in both your time and each other's time because, you're building a life together. You're not just here for the kicks.
Um,
So I think going into my relationship, I'm going to really value my time.
no, I agree with that. And one person in the chat, Rich Homie Jomi says, a relationship is kind of like reading a good book, or not a relationship, but the first date or the first conversation is kind of like reading a good book. You don't want the whole story in the first chapter. The anticipation of what's next does hit. That's what you're kind of looking for. And I could agree with that. You don't want to, like I said, you don't want to use all your chips on the first play, or you don't want to put everything in on the first play. So like I said, I'm like 75% on this. Where the only part I disagree on in terms of value your time and not and ending the date early is where it becomes not yourself. If you're engaging in a way that isn't who you are, because if you want to spend more time with her, I think you should say, like, now that it's like an epiphany, like maybe say like, hey, I'd love to spend more time with you, but I got to do this, that, and the other. And then you do this, that, and the other, and you go home, right? That way you're not overdoing the time, and you're leaving time, or you're leaving interest for next time, right? Sorry, I couldn't think of how I want to say that, but at least you're acknowledging the fact that you don't want to leave, but you should, if that makes sense.
I do. I that makes perfect
So
sense,
yeah, so I can agree with that. And I like the way Jomi put it in the Twitch chat. That was a good way to put it. Let's move to step 6. We're almost done. Step 6 is rate the date, according to Sarah Kerrigan. Now for the dreaded question, she says, how do you even know if there's going to be a second date? And Kerrigan's advice was simple. She says, you'll know. And on the off chance that you don't, that's a step. That's a lame step. Anyway, her step 6 is basically a segue into step 7, which is taking the next step. And Victoria, you can take it away on taking the next step.
I mean, you can generally know if your date went well. I think in this particular situation, since it's a virtual date we're talking about, you're gonna know. Like after an hour and only 2 drinks, have you guys been able to like fluidly speak to each other? Have you been able to find things that you're interested in? And if you were not agreeing on things, could you speak about them in a nice way? So it's really nice because since the added pressure of not being face to face and maybe even that pressure of that first kiss is not there, it gives you the ability to be a little more flirtatious. Like, well, I'm having a great time. When can we do this again? Some people don't know how to segue from one topic to another, especially when they're nervous or if they feel like they're under a lot of pressure. So, the taking the next step part usually should, come a little easier to them. Like if you see the signs that are there. Like I've
Right.
been on some days where I'm just like, this is definitely like I'm not even gonna speak to you after tonight is over. Like, nah. There was no connection. I didn't, feel like I want to give you more of my time. But then there have been other days where, you know, I'm not even gonna wait for you to leave. Like I'm just gonna say, like, hey, when can I see you again? And you don't have to be candid about it, just be blunt. I want to see you again. I had a
I
really great time and I want to explore this.
if I can hit reset on the world, and then you can just like pick a quality uh for everyone to have innately, it would be I don't want to say blunt, but be straightforward. Like I'm within dating, and this goes beyond the 7 steps, just beating around the bush and kind of just like dodging, and that's where it's like that's where it's the toughest in my opinion. And that's where most of the confusion stems from. And let's take step 7 for example. Take the next step. If they're not interested, or if they're not replying or whatever, okay, fine. Like, take the next step. I get that. But then you have the situations where it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, my phone broke and I couldn't talk to you for a while because my phone broke. And then all of a sudden it's like this great thing that works out. And it's like, because a lot of people will say to me like, oh, dude, like she's obviously not interested, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, shit, man. Like, what if this, that, and the other is the problem? And like, she like her phone is broken, or she is busy, or whatever. Because that's always a big question guys have, like, oh, she's not replying after a while. All of a sudden, maybe something happened or whatever. So reading her quote, don't be afraid to just go for it. Life is too short to move on. In reference to moving on, it's like, well, first of all, life is too short. And that's and again, going back to the fear of never finding someone, or it's taking too long, or there isn't always the next one. Life is short, and there isn't always the next one. I just don't think there is. And if there is, they might be in Asia. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, again, this is one of those steps that I feel like it's like I'm 80% agreeing with it, but I'm also 20% like, well, like maybe for you, maybe for this expert, there is, oh, she can take her next step easily without having to worry, quote unquote, too much about it. But for Joe Schmo who's balding and maybe isn't confident, or isn't susceptible to getting matched a lot on these dating apps, life's short. He's almost 40 years old, and he wants a family, and he can't have a family without a mate. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Or either that, and he gets a family with someone that he's not maybe fully into, or it's too late. Like, he doesn't want to be the 50-year-old dad when his son is born. You know what I mean? Like,
you can't control that, but like that all comes from you, Jesse. All comes from within you. Things happen, like just because you're balding, it's not a genetic thing. It could be how you're taking care of yourself. If you look or you feel a certain way, like these are things that you have the control to go and fix. You can't control other people. You can't control, someone, like why someone is not attracted to you. But what you can do is control about how you are putting yourself out there that will ultimately impact how people are attracted to you. Like I said, like I'm attracted to somebody that like I can look at them and I know I'm going to go have a deep, enriching conversation with them, because
right.
I'm not here to just hang out with you. I'm really here to just see, some structure, some potential. Like I could talk to just anybody about music. I could talk to just anybody about going to a concert, but like I want to get to the nitty gritty. Did you hear that chord change? Do you want to talk about the history of this instrument, or do you want to talk about the history of like this genre? Just to name something, and I graduated high school, Jesse, weighing like 150 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just 150 pounds of fat. I did not work out. I was not in PE in high school or anything like that. Say that like I was still just so like, yeah, of course I was self-conscious. I would look at myself in the mirror and not appreciate the person that I saw, but it's not like it stopped me from going to talk to people. And absolutely, people rejected me. Absolutely. And then there were people who didn't reject me, and it's putting that in your mind. Like, I am how I am, and I'm either comfortable or not comfortable. And what am I going to do about it? You can't live your life afraid or being the victim. Woe is me, and miss out on all of these amazing opportunities.
Right.
It is to say Kathy, that if you perhaps, took care of yourself a little differently when you were in your 20s and you had the courage to go speak to Kathy would have married you and had 5 kids with you. And instead of marrying somebody else and having 5 kids with somebody else and feeling unfulfilled and, her life got all messed up, you could have saved her life too. It's relationships are a two-way street. You got to look past whatever your insecurities are and you just got to do it. I don't
Right.
really like to sing in front of people, but I was with a friend last night who showed me how to make music, like from the beginning, and we made a song, and it was very nice. You just have to
Yeah.
put yourself out there. Keep
And I'm not,
going.
just to be clear, I just want to say I'm not speaking for everyone when I say all these things. I am playing, I'm kind of doing the whole devil's advocate kind of, like what about this guy kind of thing. So I'm not in the whole balling thing. Is it happening to me? Maybe, don't judge me. But anyway, but I like the way Sky Shadix in the chat put it. He says relationships takes two, and 1,000%. It's 50-50, right? But you can only do so much about yourself, right? You can only do so much to change in a positive way or in a negative way to attract somebody. And I feel like that's the other half of it, right? Whoever you're into, like in terms of who you are, right? Like, so there might be people attracted to me, like that you might have confidence, or you might be how can I put this? There might be a certain demographic that's attracted to you, right? But then there's also the demographic that you're attracted to, which might be different. So, for example, there might be the guy who gets matches on these apps, right? But they're all people that he's just not into or she's not into, right? And then there's and like the whole big question, what is he into? The girls that he's into might not be attracted to a guy like him. So that there's that part of it too. And I know that's a huge can of worms to talk about as well, but it's like there's a lot of variables obviously in dating. And that's what this whole COVID-19 dating app discussion is basically acknowledging. But it's just interesting to think about like the dynamics of it, like taking that next step and moving on. It's like, well, for me, I can't just move on because there's not someone I don't want to say waiting, but there's not someone who I can have a chance with for another 3 years. Or obviously there's no number you can just assign, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it might be a long time before you find that next person who's attracted to you and fits your attraction, fits the person that you want to, that you are attracted to. And obviously, and it goes beyond attracted. And I know that. I understand that. It goes beyond attraction. Like you can end up being with someone that physically might not be in your wheelhouse of attraction, but you end up loving them for who they are. And that's okay. And that's beautiful. And I agree with that as well. But with these dating apps and the way that they are designed and the way they are built, it's hard to just, it's very superficial. Let me put it that way. The dating apps, I feel like, have created a superficial layer to dating in general. And this goes beyond COVID-19, beyond the virus. However, I feel as though because of the number of people using the apps because of COVID-19, that superficial ratio or percentage of people who are a little bit more high standard than others, or however you want to put that. I know it's subjective, but the standards I almost want to say they might have gone down, if that makes sense. I feel like people are more willing to give something a shot because they don't have the luxury to go out and find somebody. And I know we're drifting off from step 7, but it's kind of still connected in a way. And I feel like there will be less moving on because I feel like the virus is successfully pairing people that might not have normally paired, if that makes sense.
That's what's really nice about this online dating thing, taking the next step and things that are starting to reopen. You know, you are going to meet these people online and then you have the ability to go meet them in person and they're not going to waste your time anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you have had the time to be inside by yourself, which is why I've been so happy to be home. You know, this was the opportunity for you to like really take a good look at yourself. What are things I like about myself? What are things I don't like? What are things that people have expressed to me they don't like? And it's a nice way for you to modify the types of people that you're interested in and the types of things that you want to do after the fact. You know, it really is to say between me and you, for somebody who's never used online dating like that, I do believe that this is going to bring a very positive change about. Like, yes, obviously it's very sad that a lot of couples are going to come out of this getting a divorce and having to do a lot of things new for the first time,
Hmm.
but it's also going to be really exciting. They have this really new concept of meeting people to look forward to, and that's technology. You know, and especially the fact that it's, you know, through right now this particular situation, you have nothing to rely on. You know, I'm not going to go put makeup on just to take a picture inside my house real quick, but now you have to get to know me without my makeup. Now you're going to get to know like me in the raw. So when we do go out, I
That'll,
can just a little hiccupy, sorry.
no,
So
you're
that,
good.
you know, I am brave enough to take those extra steps with you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I definitely I agree with most of these points. I'm about 90%, 95% on the yes train with Sarah Kerrigan, or not Sarah Kerrigan, Serena Kerrigan and her 7-step guide. No, I don't want to say guide, but 7 steps of online dating with the COVID-19. Again, just to speed through it for those of you who missed out. Step 1, jumping right in. Step 2, dressing the part. Step 3, hyping up yourself and making sure you're confident. Step 4, initiating the conversation, acting interested. Step 5, valuing your own time. Step 6, rating the date and making sure you want a next one. And then last but not least, step 7 is taking that next step, whether it's positive because it went well, or if you need to go back to the drawing board or dating field and finding someone different. I think I mostly agree with Kerrigan here. I think she made some very good points. But with that, we are reaching about 2 hours here, this has definitely been the longest episode of Ice-T and the Hippogriff so far. But I mean, based off the Twitch chat, based off the feedback we've been getting, this has been a very, 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 very successful show, and I hope everyone in the chat has had a great time. But I think it's about time to wrap it up here. Victoria, do you have anything else you want to add before we call it a night?
Izzy, this was a really fascinating topic, sir. I'm really happy. Like we both have we have two very different views and approaches to this new dating. But this was a great time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us.
Yeah, I think this was worth it. I know we touched on it in the first episode when we had the very, very first episode a long time ago. I know we touched up on it, but I just thought, like this was we've talked about it a few times off the air together just to talk, and those conversations lasted a decent amount of time. So I was like, you know what? I think this would be a good thing to talk about. I think a lot of people have learned something or have at least pondered something in the chat here today. And I'm sure people who listen in on anchor.fm/Ice-T and the Hippogriff will also learn something. And I'm sure they have thought about things. But with that, I think it's about time. Let me just go through real quick. You can find us every Thursday night here on twitch.tv/IceTKirby. That is every Thursday at around 7:00 p.m. We will be discussing many exciting things, and we will have a fun time doing so. Today was really great. I had a great time. We had a great turnout in the Twitch today. We had about 20-ish viewers listening in and participating in chat and talking about dating during COVID-19. So that was really fun to read all the comments and hear their feedback, and what a great time. Also, if you want to listen to us off the air, our recordings for our podcast will show up on anchor.fm/Ice-T and the Hippogriff. And that is with 2 P's and 2 F's in Hippogriff. And our podcast will show up on many other platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Spotify, and much, much more. You can catch us there also. And those episodes, I don't want to skip out on this. Those episodes will come out on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, along with YouTube as well. And our YouTube link will be found at the bottom of the stream. There's a link to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to us on there. That will help us a lot. And follow us on Twitch. For my Instagram, my Twitter, and my YouTube, you can find me at IceTKirby. And that is just the letter T in the middle. Victoria, where can they find you?
Guys, you can find me on Instagram at dothehippogriff, 2 P's, 2 F's. And you can find me on Snapchat at hippogriffs.fly.
Awesome. And obviously, we love everyone who listened in. Thank you for coming, and thank you for showing up and taking part of our episode today. As always, please, if you enjoyed today's show, please like, please follow, please share on all of our platforms: Anchor.fm, Instagram, YouTube, here on Twitch, wherever you can. Please follow us and like us. That helps us a lot. On YouTube, subscribe. That helps us a lot. The more followers and the more listeners we get, the more the more things we can add and make a better experience for you guys. And we love talking about this. This was so fun. Last but not least, Victoria, and I hate to put you on the spot here. Do you have a quote of the day? Aside from the one I normally use, this is one that I really like. The brick walls are there for a reason. The brick walls are not there to keep us out. They are there for us to show how bad we really want something. So don't ever give up. No matter how impossible it seems, you will break that wall down. Awesome. And with that, have a fantastic week and or weekend. Catch y'all next time.
Bye.